How significant is this sort of intervention by the Wagner Group and the idea that they're going to withdraw?
Well, if he follows through, it's extremely significant. Bakhmut has been the center of the fighting that's been going on this year. In fact, the fighting in Bakhmut started last summer. Um, the Ukrainians have been hanging on there, taking big losses themselves, but as far as they're concerned, imposing even bigger losses on the Russians. And the Wagner Group has been doing the bulk of the fighting. And given how little that the Russians have achieved in their attempts to advance over the last month or so, if they actually had to give up on Bakhmut, and I can't see how they could do it without the Wagner Group, then that's a big failure on the Russian side.
And in terms of the closeness of the Wagner Group to President Putin and this project, what is their relationship like? Is it purely based on money, or is there a meeting of minds? Is there a sort of shared ambition, or is it just a transactional kind of arrangement?
I think it's a combination of all of those things. Prigozhin famously was sort of Putin's cook. He built up this mercenary group, which has done a variety of foreign policy adventures, if you will, particularly in Africa. Also appeared in Syria, were in Ukraine in 2014 as well. And I think Prigozhin was making a real push to demonstrate that he's a big player in the Russian security scene, and Bakhmut was the means by which he was doing it. That this, more than anywhere else in the fighting, was his battle. And you have this curious thing in Russia where instead of everybody being part of the same armed forces, you have a number of private military companies. Wagner is not by any means the biggest, but not this was the biggest, but by no means the only one. As we can see, they don't really have a concept of unity of command. They're trying to push their own agendas as rather than necessarily push the one that's coming from the Ministry of Defence.
And what do you think has prompted this? Is it because, as has been reported, they don't feel that Russia has given them the equipment and the munitions they need? Or is this like a bit, do we read more into this, that this is a sign that actually things are really faltering on the Russian side?
Well, they're connected. So this is a complaint Prigozhin's been making for some time. You mentioned that the latest video is a rather grisly one, where I'm standing beside loads of bodies of killed Wagner troops that days. Those had been lost that day. There was another very similar video a few weeks ago, and he was making the same complaint then. So there's an ongoing question, and part of the issue is Wagner being denied ammunition deliberately because they Shoigu, the Minister of Defense, and Gerasimov, the Chief of the General Staff, who were being lambasted in that video, want to get their own back? Or is it just that they're limited and they're now worried about a coming Ukrainian offensive, and so are rationing their stocks to everybody? And it's also, from Wagner's point of view, a reflection of a failure that's been met in the Russian offensive, in his part of the Russian offensive. And this is a good excuse, rather than just saying he's been throwing men unnecessarily and in a rather callous way at Ukrainian defenses. He can blame somebody else for a defeat.